Ladies and gentlemen, if there was a real-life League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, European Commissioner Olivier Varheyli would be at the top of it. Shh. Should I repeat? Ladies and gentlemen, if there was a real-life League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, European Commissioner Olivier Varheyli would be at the top of it. When the situation in Ukraine became dangerous, Commissioner Varheyli worked closely with the Federation of Jewish Communities of Ukraine to evacuate more than 30,000 Ukrainian people to safe zones. Together, they mobilized 500 volunteers to support citizens and deliver thousands of packages of basic emergency supplies, mainly food and medicines, across 180 communities in Ukraine. The communities of Ukraine are so grateful to you, and we are delighted to be joined by Rabbi Rothman, Vice President of the Federation of Jewish Communities of Ukraine, who wanted to come and say thank you to you in person. Standing up for Israel in the European institution is not easy, but when something is right, it is right. And when your conviction is clear, nobody can intimidate you or change your mind. So it is with Commissioner Varheyli. When we invited the Commissioner to address our conference with Israeli Minister Pnina Shatta in Brussels, that conviction was on display in strong words. Like Mrs. Metzola, in the duty of Europe to defend against terror and hate. He understands that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are one and the same. He said clearly, and I quote, "What starts with incitement to hatred and violence becomes terror and prevents coexistence. It is not enough to talk about it. We need to act, and we need to act now. The EU cannot be a credible actor, neither in Europe nor in the Middle East and beyond, if we do not deliver on these fundamental commitments." Commissioner Varheyli, you welcome the resumption of the EU-Israel Association Council. You bring balance, wisdom, and common sense to the table, and Jews across Europe are deeply grateful to you and your work. When you speak of Israel, you make us all very proud. And we are proud to present you with the Jerusalem Award. The award shows a strong hand holding up Jerusalem. May you always have the strength to do so for many, many years. Commissioner Varheyli, please join us on stage to accept your award. I would like to invite also Rabbi Margolin on stage, Rabbi Rothman from the Federation of the Jewish Community of Ukraine, Mr. Kalman Saleh from the Action and Protection League, Mr. Alexander Mashkevich, His Excellency Mr. Chaim Regev, the Ambassador of Israel to the EU and NATO. Please come on stage.
The inscription reads, "Awarded to Mr. Oliver Varheyli, European Commissioner for Neighbourhood and Enlargement, in recognition and gratitude for your work in standing up for Israel and the Jewish people and the Ukrainian people."
Well, dear Rabbi Margolin, dear President of the Parliament, dear Roberta, dear members of the Jewish community, dear Prime Minister, first of all, I never would have thought that it's going to be here that I meet so many friends. This is the first wisdom of the day. The second wisdom of the day for me was that the only way to defeat death or the Holocaust is to bring life. Only life can defeat death. So this prize today is priceless for me, because of course we are all working for one cause, to make the world a better place. But you have to start somewhere, so I started here. And I think that those who are working tirelessly, like my good friend, have shown the world that we can change it. We can save lives, we can save people today, and this is our job. Because today we are commemorating the legacy of the Kristallnacht. Don't forget. We have to honor the victims of the Shoah by standing up for those who are living, and we need to save them also from Ukraine as we speak, but we also have to stand up for them and their memories every day, everywhere. Because, of course, much has been told about the Holocaust and the unforgivable sin by the Nazis, and it is, of course, very difficult to talk about it. But still, I think we should talk about it, and maybe we should talk about it in a way, in the language that our generation understands. And this could be the bridge, maybe, from never again to how to make Europe a Europe that has been there at the beginning of the century, when Jewish life was flourishing. And our job is to bring back Jewish life as it was before the Holocaust. It's quite a challenge, but I think we have already started working on that together. And this is why I think that if we want to keep the memory of the Shoah alive in the future, we have to create a new era based on this. And this era must be done together with the people. Because we can preach, we can craft messages, speeches, but it is the people who change the world. Because an era in which anti-Semitism, hatred to violence, incitement are on the rise again are not going to bring this. We see terrorist attacks on synagogues, we see hate speech online and offline, we see murders, we see Jews being harassed by simply for the fact of wearing a kippah in a public place. And we see demonstrations in Europe, again, against Jews. And we have seen this before. This is crude anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism brought along also anti-Zionism. Anti-Zionism, which I think is also a denial of Jewish life. Because Jewish life is rooted in Zionism. There's no other way. So standing up against anti-Semitism is something that we have to not only repeat, but we have to make it very clear. That this is not only not negotiable, but this is not a question of majorities. This is not a question of procedures. This is a core value. So ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing to bring life back? We have been engaging together with the State of Israel in quite challenging times to change the minds in Europe about Judaism, about the Jewish culture, and the major contribution it has always given to Europe. For me, it is very clear that we have to go down and work with the people. I give you some examples that we are working on. You know, I'm not only responsible for Israel, I'm also responsible for other countries. I'm responsible for 22 countries. And I remember vividly when entering the Commission, I thought that it's obvious to everyone what I think, but it wasn't. And that it was obvious for everyone what needs to be done, but it wasn't. But I'm very proud that more and more it becomes obvious what needs to be done, even if they don't like it. And this is why I'm very proud that we are not only defending Jewish life in Europe, but also around Europe. Because don't forget that the EU is not Europe. The continent is much bigger, and Jewish life is much bigger than the continent. This is why we're working on a cemetery and a synagogue in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This is why in Ukraine we're working together. This is why in Morocco we are having projects, and this is why we are engaging with the State of Israel on the new language which is called the Abraham Accords, because that is the only way to bring peace, stability, and prosperity forward, not only for Europe and in Europe, but beyond. And this is why I think Europe should start learning this language, and maybe even speak that language. In addition, we are also taking decisive steps to address the foundations for peace, and this is why we are resolute to make sure that no EU funds can contribute to incitement to hatred. This is why we are committed not to share any of European funds to organizations or people who are inciting to hatred, violence, or terrorism, who are not complying, be it their educational system or other, with basic standards. Because anti-Semitism, incitement to hatred and violence, glorification of terrorism has no place in classrooms, be it in the EU or outside the EU, and EU taxpayers shall not fund it. And last, but certainly not least, we are of course working with the Jewish community to bring the everyday life back, meaning that people should be proud of being Jew.